So hey, look at that. Meta has a new AI model. After spending tens of billions of dollars on their AI projects, they're going to be putting hundreds of billions of dollars more into their AI projects. Meta finally has another competitive AI model. Are you excited yet? Are you like, wow? I wasn't going to do AI until Meta really got into the AI game. I think this is just kind of an interesting story, like with the whole, we talk about in the technology world, there's first movers and second movers and third movers and then 500th movers. Right, and I tell you, there's this idea of first mover advantage. The first company to get into a specific niche, for some reason people think is going to be the winner, is going to monopolize that niche. And one of the things I've talked about for a long time is many times that is just not the case, right? The companies that create a niche basically are the first movers. Many times they burn so many resources and they fail so much trying to figure out what the hell anybody wants that at the end of the day, the second and third movers can come in. They learn all the lessons that the first movers learned, basically without having to spend all the money and resources. They can focus on what customers actually want. And many times it's the second, third, and fourth movers that actually win the game. Again, you look at a company like Facebook or Meta, right? You had Friendster, you had MySpace, and then you had Facebook, right? Right? Friendster just died. Apparently their architecture at some point sucked, came to a screeching halt, and they just failed. MySpace got sold for basically tax purposes, and Facebook is now still around, right? So that's an example of a second mover advantage. Again, you think about a company like Google, right? Yahoo was the Yahoo of its era. I remember the first time somebody told me about Google, and I was like, no, I prefer Lycos. Anybody else remember Lycos? I liked Lycos. What can I say? Anyways, right, Google comes in, learned all the lessons from the people that came before, and they just wiped the floor with fucking everybody else is gone. Like Bing exists. We can all agree that Bing exists, right? Anyways, that can be the value of being, coming to the game a little bit later. One of the things that I find weird though with Meta is basically there's so much competition in the AI space right now, right? Again, you've got OpenAI, you've got Anthropic, but even Microsoft itself is coming up with their own models. Amazon is coming up with their own models. You got Mistral. IBM is doing their own thing. Like every tech company in the world is doing AI. And so one of the weird things with Meta is they're coming into this game. They're spending a tremendous amount of money on AI. And I really do have to ask the question, like, what is the value proposition for Meta trying to win this particular game? So Meta's long-awaited AI model is finally here, but can it make money? Oh, I don't know. What's your definition of making money? Almost 10 months after Meta spent billions of dollars to bring in scale AIs, Alexander Wang as a centerpiece of Mark Zuckerberg's AI overhaul, the company finally revealed Muse Spark on Wednesday. Its first new model since the transition. One big question is, will users pay for it? Probably not. Look, I stopped paying for ChatGPT. Again, one of the interesting things with this whole thing, I've talked about this many times, I was paying for ChatGPT for 2 years. Again, some things came up. I just decided to take a look at what the market was like, and I realized I could get all the services that I need for free. So I can pay, definitely, $20 a month. I was paying $20 a month, and yet the market has turned into such an environment where it's just not worth, it's literally just not worth paying $20 a month anymore for this particular service. So basically, Meta is coming out with their model, with their product, into an environment where people are realizing, they don't actually have to pay for the products. Right? Let's see here. In June, Meta shelled out more than $14 billion to Hai Wang and some of his top engineers and researchers, soon creating Meta Superintelligence Labs as a new elite unit. And in January, the company told the Wall Street Journal it plans to pour between $115 and $135 billion this year into CapEx, nearly double its 2025 CapEx, right? So they put in somewhere between 55 to 70 billion dollars in capital expenditures in 2025 then, and they're looking up to 135 billion dollars this year. Quote, it's been a year of basically no releases and a lot of hiring, and then the capex worries for this year are pronounced, said Morningstar analyst. Quote, I think Meta had to show investors and operators they've been working on something of substance. That's the first step. So they've dumped all of this money, all of this time, all this amount of resources into their AI. And basically what we're getting right now is proof of life. Hey, look, no, we've been working. We've been doing something. Does that give you confidence? Let's see here. Muse Spark, Meta's newly released model, is proprietary, a sharp change from the predecessor. I also do think this is interesting. Again, we see this, the divergence between the Chinese way of doing artificial intelligence and the American way of doing artificial intelligence. So Meta had put out what they call an open source model, right? So basically the idea was as long as you had under like 750 million monthly users, so basically Snapchat apparently, you could use their model for free. So it was free for you to use for anything, commercial purposes or whatever else. And I do believe you could deal with the weights, so you could change the weights or whatever else. And so that's what they had before. Again, is it open source? You know, no, to be clear, no, it was not open source, but on the other hand, from a practical standpoint, most people didn't care. What's really interesting in this with Muse is, no, this is going to be truly proprietary. So this is going to be behind their walls. This is going to be licensed. You're going to have to pay for it. And I do think this is interesting, again, with the whole AI, the whole China versus AI, China versus US AI war is basically, you know, this thing where China is going ever more open source models, open source hardware. Again, we're pushing really hard into RISC-V. Basically open, transparent, anybody can use it. That's the way China is going. And ever more closed, ever more behind walls is the way that the United States is going. And as I've said, I just think this is a bad way to go. I think it's bad strategy. I think it's bad. You know, here's the thing. Like a lot of people say, like, oh, Eli is so, you know, pro-China or whatever else. Eli isn't a real patriot. Now, here's the thing. Like, imagine you're rooting for a sports team. I don't know, one of them. Green Bay Packers. I know them. They exist. Anyways, imagine you're rooting for a sports team and you've always loved this sports team. This is your sports team, right? No matter what happens, you're going to root for them. And then imagine basically the quarterback for the team, for some reason, every time the play starts, the quarterback just stops. And then they get tackled. Now it happens one time, and you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe they got the yips, maybe they got a little injured, maybe there's a problem. But now imagine that happens like 10 times. Imagine that happens like 10 times in a game. Wouldn't you be getting a little pissed? Wouldn't you be getting a little irritated? Wouldn't you be like, motherfucker, quarterback, do something with the ball? Does that mean you hate the Green Bay Packers? Does that mean you're no longer going to be a Green Bay Packers fan? Does that mean you're rooting for the Ravens? No, that means you're sitting there watching the quarterback do something obviously asininely stupid again and again and again and again, and it's frustrating for you to see this. And that's me. I am looking at our technical and trade policy for the United States and going, what the fuck are we doing? But anyways, yes, so this is proprietary. Taking a cue from other frontier AI labs, Meta aims to eventually offer third parties paid API access to Muse Spark after an initial private API preview with select parties. So they're going down the API route. So again, right? Andrew Boone, an analyst at Citizens, said Meta's clear advantage is more than 3 billion people who use Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp every month, and the business opportunity for Meta has nothing to do with trying to attract developers currently swarmed to OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, and a host of Chinese models, but rather to focus on its core market, advertising. Quote, that's the crown jewel. That's what needs to continue to improve, said Boone. Let's see here. Quote, I believe that would be the killer use of Meta's perspective. Khan said, make ads more engaging and improve targeting. Based on the technical benchmarks Meta released comparing Muse Spark to rivals, the new AI model appears to excel in areas related to image and video processing. Quote, compared to like Claude and Gemini, I think it definitely feels like it has a more consumer bent, Zhen said about Muse Spark. So that might be the market that they're going after, is like the advertisers. So what if you could create a fully AI ad system? So right now, like you do A/B testing, right? So you come up with a number of different banner ads or a number of different ads. You put them out basically on the internet, and then what A/B testing is you find out which ads get clicked on more, and then you start showing more of the ads that get clicked on and less of the ads that don't, right? What is kind of interesting here is basically the idea of what happens if artificial intelligence starts automatically creating the ads for you. So you need an ad for a 26-year-old, woman in Montana who just had a kid and is thinking that she might be lesbian. Like, how do you get her to buy a big screen TV? Like maybe you have like AI like try to figure out the perfect word choice to get that particular demographic to buy a big screen TV. Hey, nothing. You'll never understand the power of the L word. Was it the L word? Did you ever see that show? It was like 20 some odd years ago. That was weird. That was a weird show. Anyways. Right, unless you got a big screen TV. So maybe that's how they can use it. Or again, like things like image generation, like trying to truly customize the images and the advertising directly for the people. Again, I do think that there could be a value proposition there. The question with all this though is like, what is that? What is that value proposition? Is it worth that much? Again, somewhere between 55 to 75 billion dollars last year, up to 135 billion dollars this year, more the year after, Are those kind of AI systems going to be worth that much money? I think that'll be a question. Again, if they're going after consumers, so the idea could be here right now with Anthropic. I mean, Anthropic is going after professionals. I would argue though, Gemini and OpenAI is basically going after everybody. But anyways, I don't know. Maybe they could feel that consumer level AI is a bigger play. But then again, the question is how much are the consumers going to pay? Right, $20 per month for a consumer is a lot of money. Whereas you listen to the All In podcast and Calcanis is paying like $30,000 a month in tokens. Like, what customer do you want? Let's look at it this way. What target demographic do you want to go for? Do you want to go for the target demographic that is questioning whether they want to part with $20 per month, or do you want the target demographic that's burning $30,000 in tokens per month and really is actually trying to figure out ways to make it $60,000 in tokens per month? Like, which market are you trying to go after? That is one thing. Again, I listen to these podcasts as I do the little elliptical machine. I was listening to one of these dipshits. I forget which dipshit it is. But they were talking about that with consumers paying for AI. And again, it's very weird. Like sometimes like when you're listening to AI, it does sound like bad Shark Tank episodes. And literally this guy is like, well, yeah, of course consumers are going to be willing to pay a significant amount of money for AI. Like, look at what they're paying for Netflix, and look at what they're paying for Spotify, and look at what they're paying for these other consumer services. And you're like, but I mean, whatever you want to say about AI, it's not Spotify, it's not Netflix, and it's not PS Now or whatever the fuck it is. Like, those aren't the same. It's not the same critter. So I don't know. Maybe Facebook thinks they can go after that particular market. So we're gonna see where it goes. We're gonna see where it goes. What do you think about Facebook coming out with their latest model, the Muse model? What do you think about it being proprietary? There's gonna be an API for it. Do you think there's a niche, a valuable niche? Again, going after the advertisers or the consumers or whatever else. Do you think that Mark Zuckerberg has any fucking clue at this point in time? Do you think Mark Zuckerberg is just throwing money at shit? Just to feel good about throwing money at shit? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. With that, see y'all later.